Hello, Merry Meet. So today I want to review a book. And the book I want to review is The Powwow Grimoire by Robert Phoenix. Now, Powwow is also known as Pennsylvania Dutch. It's basically the folk magic of the Pennsylvania Dutch people. And while this book stated, oh no, it's unique for that region, it really isn't. The hex signs are, but you will find very similar folk magic in all areas that are heavily inspired by German people. But, so what does this book contain? It is a grimoire. It does contain various forms of spells, verses, and recipes for what to do for various forms of ills and woes. Mostly it's protective magic. I'm not completely pleased with it, and let me explain why. Usually when I review books I start with the index. This one doesn't have an index. It doesn't even have a page count. And do you know why? Because the author tells us about that in the intro. He thinks it would be much more exciting to flip through the book and not have an index or a table of contents or anything of the like. It would be just so much fun struggling to look for things. I can see why this is published on Lulu instead of being a regularly published book. Anyway, there are also a couple of other issues with it. One of the issues is that several of the spells are in there twice, or with only minor variation, so it could have been edited better. Other than that, I would say that my main issue is that I can't agree with the author. Now, he has an extremely narrow view of if something is written like this, then it has to be done like this, without having any idea why. And that's an issue. So, for example, there's a discussion within Powwow about how many, basically, if you can say the lines 3 times on the same day. Because it can be somewhat impractical if you go to somebody to have a cure and then you have to return the second day. So traditionally, of course, these were small communities where it was easy to just run over to the neighbor's house. And generally speaking, the spell was repeated 3 times. You did it once, then you did it again after half an hour, and then you did it again the next day. But this can then be impractical. And in none of the books that have inspired the system does it say why, and other systems that are inspired from the same base doesn't have it. And it's just, well, I have no idea why this would be so, and it's extremely impractical today, but you have to follow it because the source material says so, no questions asked. Wonderful. So, and that attitude sort of goes through the entire material. Is no basically breaking down of the material, no idea of, okay, why, speculation about why were this done. It's just, oh well, the book says so. And that sort of lead me to the... Now, powwowing is a Christian magical path. There's no getting around it. It's a little bit of an oddball Christianity, but it's a Christianity. Among other things, they include the Greek gods, but they're as creations of gods that are used to communicate with God. But anyway, the main basic is the strict Protestant Christianity, where you have the all, oh, you happen to work on a Sunday, well, sorry, you will be tortured for eternity because we have such a good and merciful God. And if you're not very into that, there will be some face palming reading this book, but fine, that's just part of the system. And while some more modern powwowers have toned that down a little bit, not so much here. I also do not like how he has a tendency to just just basically try to prop what he likes up by pressing everything he doesn't like down, so that he has presented here a system for divining with regular playing cards. Now, what he says about the tarot there is completely wrong. He goes through the history of the tarot compared to playing cards, and it's just wrong. Excuse me, it's my phone. Yes. And so he has the history of it wrong, but that's fine. The system itself is actually pretty good. I have tried it out, and I want to learn it by heart because it's a very useful magic system. However, the what he says there is that, oh, well, tarot is so horrible, that's just not serious, and he goes through that with a lot of different systems. Well, what I like is great because everything else is shit, and I don't generally like that. Other than that, there is some good information in here. There are some very useful spells. If the extremely conservative Christianity doesn't get you a little bit bothered, but like I said, that is not a complaint about this book because that's just part of the system. Then, I mean, it's decent enough. But there are some problems with the information here. This does not go into any great detail about hex signs. It is more verses and reading, which is a method for folk magic, which is go into some detail. There's lots of spells. There are that divination system, which is good, which I do recommend, and there are some about the history and why and how of powwowing, though it doesn't go into any great depth about it, because like I said, it focuses very much on just doing exactly what is said. Of course, this book says that you have to be Christian to work this system. I have worked this system. I am not Christian. But yeah. I also have a problem with when the author goes on, oh, but you have to have a right to do it. Just being German isn't enough. You have to be be of German descent and living in Philadelphia. But for whatever reason you want to use a magic system, learn it, use it, have at it. Whatever or not you have to be Christian for it, that I think is a complete. That completely depends on your faith, what you believe for it. I don't believe that. But it's basically, he has high thoughts of himself, this guy here. And otherwise, it goes through the various things, including some herbalism, some about Heavenly Letter, what was they called again? I would have checked it if I had an entry. It's not a system I have worked with. Himmelsbrief. Yes. It's a system of magic I have wanted to try out, but I haven't tried out yet. It's completely decent. This book is very cheap. You can get it on Amazon. And yeah, if you're interested in power and there's not that many books about it, it might be a good read. And this might also be interesting for some people who are ritual magicians, because this system came from the same sources that created modern ceremonial magic, because it's basically inspired by the old grimoires, and old ritual magic. That's why you have the Greek elements in there, because you have the Greek magical papyri. But it's just sort of been twisted into a folk magic system, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, it's a okay book, but it's not a great book. Yeah, and that is my review of The Powwow Grimoire by Robert Phoenix. And it is self-published. I hope you enjoyed this review. Have a great day, and blessed be.